This is the wrong music.
But it's a boat song.
It was supposed to be from the Civil War.
Fine. One of the most critical parts of the Union strategy in the Civil War was a blockade that surrounded the South by sea, part of Winfield Scott's Anaconda Plan. The blockade was created to stop any ships leaving the South to sell goods and prevent any goods from reaching southern states. That way, the blockade would eventually starve the South of vital manufactured goods and trading the cotton that it had grown.
This blockade caused contention for the Confederate military. In response to the blockade, the Confederate States created the Merrimac, a primitive ironclad. The iron was torn from old railroad tracks, and the Merrimac could withstand the cannon fire of the Union Navy and tore apart 2 Union vessels.
The Union Navy recognized the importance of the blockade and sent their own ironclad, the Monitor, to intercept the now Christian Virginia at the Battle of Hampton Roads. Neither ship was sunk, but they had brought about an age of steel ships.
The Confederate Navy still needed to break the blockade, so they used blockade runners in fast, stealthy ships to slip through the Union lines. According to David G. Surdan, these blockade runners had a profound effect on Southern supplies, bringing over 1/3 of all Confederate munitions used in the war.
In a material sense, the blockade wasn't quite effective until many Southern forts had been defeated by Union Admiral David Farragut, and the blockade actually tightened.
However, the blockade did create a large psychological effect on the South. According to Michael Brem Bonner and Peter McCord, as the blockade tightened, the feeling of restriction became more and more apparent. At one point, children were told that Santa Claus had not been able to run the blockade. Bonner and McCord both contend that this represented an often temporary fear whenever the blockade runners failed or the blockade was reinforced. This article argues instead of actually restricting the South, the Union blockade more or less created temporary panics that weren't realized until the South was already losing badly.
What is important to remember is that the Union blockade did shape the way the South fought the war, and added a ever-looming threat. Robert B. Eichlin and Mark Thornton explained that the Union blockade forced the South's hand into naval warfare. By simply creating a blockade, the effect of supply shortages became multiplied, since supplies by sea became a hit or miss. While there were many supplies brought through the blockade, the South's material disadvantage became far too great for blockade runners to handle. This blockade saw the rise of ironclads sailing the seas.
All in all, the Union blockade had profound effects on the Civil War, not necessarily in material needs, but in a psychological warfare that had changed the South.